We've been super focused on helping enterprises build AI agents that can reason on their proprietary data. Turns out these AI agents not just want to do work, they want to use tools, and in particular, they want to use databases. I mean, they're a lot like humans, so they want to also have access to databases. And guess what? The favorite database that all of them have been using is Postgres.
I understand his rationale for the Neon acquisition. AI agents need a robust database tooling pretty much just as much as we do. I mean, Databricks built a great platform for data engineering and governance, but on top of these layers, you actually need AI. And AI agents will only grow from here because we don't just automate tasks. We actually let these agents reason and think, and we want to give them the tools that they actually need to perform these tasks as fast as they can. In the end, we had automation for ages, but the difference between automation and AI agents is their ability to reason and pretty much take all the steps necessary and shift as many times as needed to actually achieve their goals. Now, Postgres is a great choice for this. It's been around forever and it's been my go-to database for like 10 years now. So obviously the fact that Databricks is integrating Neon's Postgres as a service offering, I think this is great news and it aligns with the current reality of what AI agents actually need.
Postgres is on a rise. Postgres is just gaining momentum every year steadily. One of the reasons is there's this huge ecosystem of open source developers and also extensions for it. The Postgres extensions, there are thousands of them. People love those. And then, no surprise, the AI agents also love these.
Postgres is on the rise. I mean, that's true. The reality for me is that it's always been popular, but nowadays is this open source push that we have from these large organizations. It just feels like they like to pump these technologies that have a large user base.
I think it's actually two camps. The Neon customers are a lot of startups, but then we'll talk to large enterprises like Databricks. They have legacy databases that they want to swap out.
Yeah,
and they're saying it's too expensive, it's stagnated, not much has happened in the last 20 years in the old database transaction processing area. We'd love to replace it with something that's modern and sort of fit for the AI era. So we're going to do both. We're going to both focus on startups, and then we're also going to bring this to the large enterprises as well.
I like this approach. You have two go-to-market opportunities, right? So you get like product-led growth for smaller startups, and you also get traditional enterprise sales for large organizations. You get customers that have legacy systems that they just want to swap out with newer tooling that supports AI agents.
Actually, one of the interesting tidbits that Neon has shared is that over 80% of their databases are actually created by AI agents. So not but traditionally, like 2-3 years ago, any database in the world would have been created what's called DBAs, database administrators, humans.
Okay, so 80% of Neon's databases are actually created by AI agents. I think this is quite of an interesting stat. Although, to be honest, that's exactly what Neon does, okay? It provisions databases quickly so that an application can spin them up as fast as possible. I mean, their main selling point is that they can provision a database in, I don't know, like less than 500 milliseconds. Obviously, an agent is going to do that, right? For use cases that are related to agents. I mean, no human engineer needs that speed. That's the whole selling point. And of course, the whole idea that you can just create multiple environments, the whole Git for databases capability. So my question is, why only 80%? For a solution like Neon, it should be more, in my opinion.
It's very early. It's going to take years before agents are everywhere, pervasive in every large enterprise. I think it actually might take 5 years. But we have to build those foundations now. This is critical, important technology. The data, the transactional data that basically all software in the planet today is built on these databases. So making the agents work well with that, it's supernatural.
I like this, supernatural. I mean, making agents work well with the foundation of software.
Microsoft, Snowflake, they've all invested in the startup. What did you see about the opportunity here and act on that maybe the others didn't?
We've been following those enterprises closely that we could see sort of how it's taking off. I mean, I think others were noticing it as well, but since we have front seat with the agents, we could really see how it's being used.
Did you have to fight off anyone else?
I think so because, strategics would not invest in a startup, right? So if strategics are investing in a startup, it's usually with one intent in mind. I mean, and us included, right? We also invested in Neon. So, I think we were just able to convince ourselves much faster than anyone else. And I think a lot of that is thanks to all the data that we have on AI agents that we get to see, thanks to Mosaic AI agents.
Okay.
How much of the...
Well, I like his diplomatic positioning here because He credited others for seeing this opportunity in this space, okay? But then he positioned Databricks' internal knowledge through Mosaic AI as the decisive edge. I like to see one metric or insight from Mosaic AI around these agents that actually informed Databricks' positioning. Like, for example, I don't know, a spike in agent queries per second, because this would enforce the need for a millisecond provisioning of Postgres databases. So Databricks sees how Neon's being used. I mean, come on, just tell us. Give us some use cases, okay? What exactly are agents doing? Are they spinning up large tables and dropping them after one use, or are they just leaving them idle, or are they doing some real-time analytics?
Then maybe I can take a minute to just explain why is Neon so good for agents. I mean, there's so many database alternatives out there. Well, it turns out the agents are operating much faster than human speed, right? They're not operating at our speed. So they need these databases to come up. So installing a database and getting it up and running for an agent needs to be as fast as humanly possible. So they can actually do this in less than 500 milliseconds, which means less than a second to spin up a whole database. Just to put it in perspective, any offering out there that you want to spin up today, probably is going to take you 20 minutes, 30 minutes to sort of set up the database and configure it, even if it's automated with sort of script and so on. So that's like one reason the agents love Neon, because it's very fast. Another reason the AI agents love Neon is that they create thousands of these, right? As we saw in the stats, over 80% of their databases are created by AI agents. So they need this to be really cost efficient. You know, if you're going to spin up and create millions of databases over the next bunch of years, you don't want to be paying millions of dollars for those databases. You want that to be proportionate to the exact usage. So here they had really innovated with the technology where they sort of have separated the compute and storage, and the bulk of the storage is super cheap in the cloud.
Ali explained this very well. I posted on LinkedIn the other day, like, why is this acquisition worth $1 billion? I mean, I already saw this video and I kind of knew why they made this investment, but I wanted to see what other people are saying. By the way, connect with me on LinkedIn. It would be great to get your opinion on this acquisition and also just to stay connected and kind of share ideas along the way. So these two technical needs for AI agents make perfect sense. You get fast provisioning and also pay-as-you-go storage. Now, let's take an AI chatbot or a recommendation system. Any pause breaks that conversation and it kind of decreases the person's engagement. Now, Ali says that it's going to be 500 milliseconds versus 20 minutes. I think this is a little bit too much, because even for cloud native Postgres, it might take you minutes, okay? But the point is still valid. Also, spinning up latency isn't just about a single database. You may get tens or hundreds of these instances just firing off in parallel when you get a lot of traffic. I would have liked if Ali would have just cited a real benchmark. Like, for example, in our internal tests, we spun up, 1,000 Neon instances at the same time, and we averaged 400, 500 milliseconds. In comparison, a cloud-managed Postgres took us 3,000 seconds or something like that, because a concrete example like this would have been super helpful and it would have been quantifiable. Now, on the second point with compute storage separation, because if the storage is decoupled from compute, okay, you only pay for the compute when you run queries, and that database gets dropped when it's not used. So you're pretty much saving money. You're either both saving time and you're saving money.
AI agents love things that are open source because, these large language models, they memorize these open source projects. And I should stress again, I think the open source aspect is super important because this is often misunderstood. The large language models, they memorize all of the source code of these open source projects. So they're really well versed in operating on open source projects. Yeah. They're not as good at working with proprietary software because they don't get to peek inside of the source code. So the large language models themselves prefer open source.
Yeah. Now, this is an obvious but sometimes ignored truth, because large language models actually love open source because they have access to the whole code base. Imagine how big Postgres is, okay? How many years of patterns, of best practices, documentation, and developer insights that are already learned by these large language models. No wonder they placed this bet on serverless Postgres. The narrative is great. I see why they bought Neon. Now, the price tag, I don't know. Obviously, Snowflake and Microsoft didn't want to pay that money, or maybe they just weren't quick enough. So clearly Databricks saw something that the rest haven't. But what do you think? Was it worth $1 billion? Let me know down in the comments, and also connect with me on LinkedIn and let me know. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe.